Get back, nigga! Get back!
What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy R.A.S, and today we're going over chapter 40 of Chainsaw Man. And if you missed chapter 38 and chapter 39, then it's literally my last video, so just please go and watch it so you'll be caught up. And warning, this is going into heavy manga spoilers, so if you're anime only, then please do not watch this video. And then let's just get straight into it. Okay, so chapter 40's name is Love Flower Chainsaw. So chapter 40 picks up, we see Denji walking down the street while the shark fiend is falling behind him underground. And we see Denji remembering Miss Makima putting her head on his chest because from last chapter, Denji asked Makima if she thought Denji had a heart. But then Denji says himself, I see now, if I get butterflies in my stomach, then that means he has a heart. Denji low-key reminds me of that scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz that I think Michael Jackson played. You remember how like he was always obsessed with him wanting a heart, and I feel like Denji's in the same place right here. I don't know why he cares so much about, you know, him having a heart or him not having a heart, but you know, is that just me or, you know, am I tripping? Anyways, Denji sees these people raising money for children that have been affected by devil attacks. So Denji, wanting to prove that he has a heart, he just donates. And the lady tells him thank you and just gives him flowers for people who donate. And she hands Denji a flower, and Denji just looks at it and just comments on how it's pretty. Then of course, you know, Denji being Denji just swallows the flower and then walks off. And we get this funny shot of this lady's face, and Denji just goes on with his day saying like he could appreciate nice things, you know, classic Denji. So then we see Denji thinking to himself how great Miss Makima is and how when he talks to her, she makes him feel better. Then Denji goes on to recall when Makima told him she'd do anything for him if he killed the gun devil. Also, he wants to ask her to take him for real on a, like, you know, dating wise. But then we see Denji close his eyes and picture Miss Makima in his head, thinking to himself basically whenever he has free time, he thinks about her, and just because he's done things with other females doesn't mean that his heart doesn't belong to her, right? And just after seeing that, I'm not gonna lie, like Denji gives me like low-key Mordecai from Regular Show vibes. Like, you know, he's over here acting like Miss Makima is like a god or something. Like, you know, is that just me or, you know, am I tripping again? So we see Denji open his eyes and hit his chest where his heart is and say to himself that he'd never fall for anyone but Miss Makima as it starts raining. Then Denji just runs and tries to get out of the rain. So we see the shark fiend come out of the ground excited because, you know, he sees that it's raining. But then Denji tells him don't make a scene or we'll have to walk the back alleys. So the shark fiend just goes back underground obeying what Denji says without any question. Because, you know, in chapter 39, we remember that, you know, he said he'll do anything Denji says. So Denji says to himself, like, you know, why do all fiends have such stupid names? And then as, you know, as we see him hiding in the phone booth. So we see this page of Denji saying to himself that he should have brought an umbrella, but then we see this mystery girl open the phone booth Denji is in. So this mystery girl says to Denji, hey, the rain is coming down hard, right? So Denji just agrees awkwardly, of course. And the girl goes on to talk about the weather forecast and then just starts busting out laughing in the middle of her sentence. So Denji wondering, of course, like, what's so funny? The girl just apologizes, and in the middle of her sentence again, she just starts laughing. And so Denji's just wondering, like, oh yeah, there's gotta be something wrong with her. And then as he looks at her, she just starts crying. And then Denji's like, you know, why are you crying? So the girl just tells Denji, sorry, you reminded me of a dog that I had that died. So of course, Denji's just like, what? Like, I'm a dog now? And then, you know, the girl just apologizes again. So we get this funny shot of Denji's face as he's acting like he's gonna throw up. So the girl, like, you know, she asks him if he's okay. So we see Denji pull out a handkerchief from his pocket as he goes to pull something out of his mouth. Then Denji pulls the flower he swallowed from earlier from those people that he donated to and pretends like he did some great magic trick, like he's Houdini or something. But, you know, of course, the girl is all surprised, and then he hands her the flower, and Denji goes on to say, no tricks, no gimmicks, just magic, right? The girl replies, you know, thanking Denji, and then we get this shot of Denji just staring at this mystery girl's face. Then we get this panel of this mystery girl's face, and if you remember, if you're an anime only, then at the end of episode 12, this is the girl that we see walking into that shop asking Denji, like, would you rather be a country mouse or a city mouse, like some crazy stuff, right? So as Denji is staring at her face, the rain suddenly stops. And while Denji is just sitting there analyzing her face, the girl goes on to say, hey, I work at this cafe down the street. You should come by sometime so I can repay you for the flower. As she leaves, she tells Denji that he better come by, and Denji just stares at her like she's insane. So we see this girl walk all the way to the cafe. So the page cuts to the cafe, and we see the mystery girl putting on an apron, and we see the boss of the cafe tell her, you know, I'm not paying you for being late, while she just, you know, calls him a cheapskate. So the boss tells her, here, just take this water to table 4, and she grabs the water and just walks away, spamming, calling him a cheapskate again. So she gets to the table and she sees Denji, and she's like, dang, like, you're already here? Like, you got here faster than me. And Denji disagrees, and he says, yeah, like, you know, I'm only here to get my thank you. And the girl goes on to say, oh, like, you know, is that right? And then she just sits down right next to Denji. So the girl asks Denji if he wants some company and calls her boss over to bring some coffee for her and him. And of course the boss is like, you know, why am I serving you? Do your job. And then she's like, you know, why not? We only get customers in the morning anyway. So the boss is like, yeah, fine, I'll just, you know, bring you the coffee. And we see the coffee, and the girl tells Denji, like, you know, here's your gift. And, you know, she asks him if he likes coffee. So of course, you know, Denji being Denji, not knowing whatever, like, you know, what coffee tastes like before, you know, he drinks the coffee. And we get this funny shot of Denji's face after drinking the coffee, and she looks at Denji and she just comments on how, you know, Denji must really not like coffee. And, you know, Denji's of course like, yeah, coffee is disgusting. And so the girl just starts busting out laughing. And then, you know, we see that as she's laughing, she's putting her hand on Denji's shoulder, and Denji notices, right? So Denji thinks to himself, like, why is she touching me and smiling at me this much? Like, and he wonders if the girl likes him or not. And we finally get to introduce to this mystery girl's name, and her name is Reze. And she asks Denji, like, you know, what's his name? And, you know, Denji obviously responds, and then, you know, and then he just looks at her. And we get this full screen of Reze saying to Denji, I've never met someone as funny as you, Denji. And Denji looks over in shock and is like, oh yeah, she def like me. And then, but like, you know, if we remember from earlier in the chapter, we see Denji obviously saying, you know, he would never fall for anyone else besides Miss Makima. But, you know, obviously we see him falling for this other girl he didn't even meet an hour ago. So, you know, obviously Denji being Denji, he's just gonna lie to himself and everybody else in the show. So then Denji thinks to himself, oh crap, I like people who like me. And he calls for help from Ms. Makima, or else he's gonna fall for this new girl named Reze. And that's the end of chapter 40. So my final thoughts on this chapter, I'm really getting bad vibes from this new girl named Reze. And, you know, the reason why is because, you know, what girl is that kind and friendly to just a random guy on the street, right? Like, it's almost too good to be true for Denji at this point, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, we also have to see what happens with, you know, the shark fiend, and, you know, how him and Denji's chemistry and how they can get character development off of that. But, you know, I feel like this chapter was a great 8 out of 10. I feel like Fujimoto is setting up a lot of stuff with Reze right here, and we're just gonna have to see what happens in the next chapter to know what happens with her. But all right, I'll see y'all next time. R.A.S. out.